Hello everybody, Adam Steele from Hotpole Studios here, and you can see that I am surrounded by the Austrian audio microphones, but today's video is a short one that's going to be about the Austrian audio HiX55 headphones. Let's talk about them quickly. So these headphones were sent to me by Austrian Audio at the same time as these microphones, and I thought I'd give them a go. And they are very interesting. They do things that other headphones don't seem to do. And I don't mean in a gimmicky kind of way. My experience with headphones generally has been that one of a few things, usually either headphones are cheap and they can be uncomfortable, they can break easily, or they can sound a little tinny, or the bass can be really over-exaggerated, or they can be really expensive, and at the high end, they tend to sound what I would call hi-fi, which means that they sound really pleasing, they sound really nice, but that's what most people want from headphones. What about mixing engineers, people like me? We want something a little different. We want honesty out of headphones. And that's something that you definitely get with the Austrian Audio HiX55s. They're the high excursion headphones, which means that the little speakers inside move a lot. And what that means is if you put some really hard hits and transients through them, they really get noticed. You get hit with them, which might not be the most pleasing thing as your average listener, but as a mix engineer, we need to know when things aren't right. Now, these don't come with any funky modeling or anything like that. Like I've been playing with the Slate VSXs for a while. In a way, I don't even consider those to be headphones because those are an all-in-one system. They do a very different thing to what these do. And honestly, those without the modeling don't sound very good. But then they're not meant to be used without them. These are headphones in the more traditional sense. You're supposed to be able to plug these into pretty much anything and go. And the little details are what make these really nice. The headphone cable is quite long, rubberized, which means it's going to be tough. Not particularly thick, but also doesn't feel flimsy. It really feels nice. It's got that screw type connection on the end with a little 3.5mm jack where you can screw the 6.35mm big jack on the end and then it won't fall off, you won't lose it, and that's a really nice little pro feature. On the other end, it connects to the headphones with a little 2.5mm jack, but it's got a little feature on here where when you push it up into the headphones, you then twist it. And when you twist it, it locks in place, which means that it's not going to fall out. It's a little tricky to do while I'm wearing them on my head. There we go. And I could pull on that quite hard and that won't come out. I'm not going to pull particularly hard. I don't want to break them, but I get the feeling I'm not going to. Definite plus from me. The earpads are nice and comfortable. They use fake leather, you know, that kind of pleather thing, which after a couple of hours can make for sweaty ear syndrome. But the other option was the velour thing, and they went with one or the other. I wouldn't mind betting that in the future they might make velour options. Personally, I like the velour thing, especially on things like Sennheiser 650s, which are open back anyway, so you're not looking for a perfect seal, whereas these, the whole fake leather thing does help them to seal onto your head, which helps with the next topic. The way the sound is balanced. So let's go for the good first. The good is that the mids in these headphones do seem incredibly well balanced, very revealing. There are no big dips that I can hear. There are no big presence peaks where I can hear things ringing like sibilance or anything in the mids. If I try driving really heavy guitars through these, I don't hear artifacts that shouldn't be there. The high end also is relatively neutral. Neutral is good. I've had issues with some of my more well-used headphones in the past where the high end has actually been quite subdued and sat back. And when I'm mixing, I want to hear that high end. I want to know that that is honest and accurate and not overly sizzly, because that's something I've been guilty of in the past, especially when the first lockdown happened. I was mixing entirely on headphones without these, and I was getting feedback that my mixes, there were issues in the high end that I couldn't pick up on. On the monitors, that's not an issue, but because of the whole situation where I could only work on headphones at that time, I didn't have the reference system to check. So being able to hear it, that's really useful. The low end, that's where we get to the point we need to talk about. Because honestly, there isn't any. And I don't mean the kind of the regular bass, I mean the sub-low. The sub-lows are not really in these headphones. Now, that can be used as a positive because it means that they're not going to overly hype you and make you believe that you've got a really full, balanced, fat mix going on when you haven't. But it would have been nice, I think, to have a bit more low-end extension in these. Not a big low-end bump, just a bit more low-end that kind of I could feel in that 20 to 50 hertz region. But I can see why they've tailed that off and left that to be much more neutral, because that must then give the drivers much more clarity in the mids because they're not trying to rattle around and kick you in the head at 20 hertz. So all in all, that means that the sound of these is probably closest, if I was to give them an analogy to a set of speakers, to a set of NS10s, the white cone speakers. These have that very revealing mid-range and the very honest top end. And actually, if you can hear a lot of nice clear low end on these, not super sub lows, but the regular kind of, you can hear them on small speakers lows, then you're probably doing quite well with your mix. I did a couple of mixes on these and the only feedback that I got was turn up the low end, the super low end. So I went back and revised the mix and did that. And then everybody was happy. And that's a really useful thing to have as a second. If you usually work on monitors and you want something to check, these might really be good as your check system because they are so neutral. So the price, they're about 150, I think it was £160. I'm just going to double check that. I should probably interrupt myself here and talk about the build quality for a second, because these are really good with solid build quality. Everything's made out of nice tough metal. The ear cups here rotate 180 degrees, well 90 degrees each, so you can put them away flat in the nice little pouch that you get. And the headphones swivel on these nice big chunky kind of pivots that are held together with what looks like some sort of hexagonal bolts. These are not toys. These are built to last by the look of things. And that is really, really good. So the last thing to talk about really is price. These things retail for about £250. So what, €280, probably $280, $300 plus sales tax and all that kind of stuff. They're not cheap. But then, from what I was talking about earlier with the build quality, these are not designed to be cheap. These are designed to last you a long time. And if you're a mix engineer and you need something that's got that honesty through the mids, and let's say you've got a room that isn't particularly well treated, something like this is really going to give you about as linear an experience as I think you're going to get on headphones that don't cost as much as the entire earth. The low end notwithstanding. But then the low end is a whole kettle of fish. That's a can of worms that is very hard to get right on headphones anyway. Which, like I said about the whole slate thing earlier, I've been using them, but they're not headphones. They're a system. You know, you can't plug those into a mobile device and expect them to perform well. I mean, arguably with any pair of headphones like this, you would be expecting yourself to have a good digital analog to converter and good headphone amp. But even if you don't with something like this, they should be driven fairly well by consumer electronics, which means that this is, for the right person, a very appealing prospect. If you're not satisfied with something like the open back Sennheiser 650s, which have a very kind of dark top end, if you're not satisfied with the Bayer Dynamic offering, which can be quite bassy and kind of flattering until it's not right, if you're not happy with the Audio Technicas, which I find to be quite heavily present and quite kind of too much for me, then you can do worse than checking out the Austrian audios. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this and found it useful. Click the like button, that would be really appreciated. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews on monitors, on microphones, on guitars, on pedals, amps, all sorts of stuff, as well as tutorials for music production on iPads, on Reaper, on Cubase sometimes. There's all sorts of stuff going on the channel, and you are always more than welcome. So I'll see you there. See you later. Hey everyone, that might be the end of the video, but if you fancy carrying on this conversation, we have a Discord server, link is in the description. We're also on Patreon, which is something you can really help us with. We also are on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Hot Pole Studios. See you there.